This week I learned another thing, and that is how useful the Draw Connections tool is in Heptabase. And what I have here is the cast from the musical Hamilton, or the speaking cast, and I want to look at how I would draw a character map using that tool. Some of you have seen my YouTube clip on the crash course in Heptabase, which has a really comprehensive look at starting in this environment. What you'll see on my screen at the moment is a series of cards on a whiteboard. If you're not sure how to do this, you might want to go and review that video first. But I'm going to look at specifically the Draw Connection tool, which I find to be more useful than the Mind Map tool because it has more options and a bit more flexibility. So the Draw Connections tool can connect cards, sections, and whiteboards together. So let's look at that tool, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. So if I start with Alexander Hamilton and Eliza Schuyler, and I wanted to draw a connection between them, I could either right click on whatever I want to start with, and you'll see there's a draw connection option, or there's a quicker way, which is if I hover over it, I can see in the top corner there's just a little arrow here to say it's draw connection if I hover, and if I just drag that from one to the other, it wants to connect. So I want to show you a couple of things here, which is once it connects, we get this toolbar. And the toolbar has lots of options. So by default, it just draws a straight line between them. Up here, though, I have options to put arrows. So this is the left-hand end, this is the right-hand end, if I actually want to show a connection between them. So if I go click on the right and put an arrowhead there, I'll just click off it so that we can see that. You'll see it's a connection between Alexander Hamilton and Eliza Schuyler. If I wanted to show a relationship where it's two-way, then I can just click on the left-hand end of that and put another arrowhead. Or if I wanted the arrow to run the other way, I can flip the direction. So I'll flip that, click off it so we can see it. Or I can put arrows on both ends. So in this case, I want to say that they are married. So to add text, I can go to this first item on the toolbar, and I can just put in married. So that's the relationship between them. As I drag this around, though, you'll see that it moves with it. And you may have seen it kind of just jump there because what it's trying to do is to make a useful connection to one of the nodes on these squares. So if I click on this, you'll see there's a little circle. I can actually drag that to one of those 4 points. And as I drag the cards past each other, they'll actually try to move to connect to make sense of it. But I might specifically want it to come out of the bottom of here. And then I've got some other options. So I can either move this card to get it so it's lower, or I can do things like, if I click on the line between them, I can change the quality of the line from being a straight line to a curved line. So already you saw that that took a wee jump. And as I move that round, it's trying to do funky things and curve. And again, it depends where on this one it connects as to what that looks like. So if I connect it to the bottom and start moving it, you'll see that it's kind of curving and things. If I click on this, you can actually see that I can grab parts of this. Now you'll see another couple of dots here, and they are actually points or nodes that I can really start to make these lines bend around things. And that's one way when it's in kind of curved mode. Or if I was in this last mode, which is kind of like just they call it an elbow, so it's the stepped mode. If I grab one of these and move it, you'll see that as I move just one of the boxes away from the other, it's kind of getting taller. If I had this box sitting down here, and I wanted to, let me just connect that to the top of the box, you'll see here that there's a bit of movement. But I've also got the ability to kind of grab, let me do this by flipping it past. I can force it to kind of bend around corners a bit more. As I get above or below it, you'll see that it's kind of just changing shape a little bit like plumbing. If I have them both going into the same side, so let's just do that. So if I have this one going into the bottom, it's probably easier to see kind of the way that the elbow function works, because now I can grab, and when I drag this bit, it's actually just allowing those to get for this part of the bar to get further away, which could be useful if I was wanting to bend it around an object. So in this case, I'm actually going to switch back to, let's go back to straight, curved line between them. You'll see when I went back to the curved, it kept all of those nodes that were in it. Or if it's straight, it's actually, it knows those nodes, but the elbow doesn't. So sometimes if you get a whole bunch of these nodes, I haven't yet found a way to get rid of those, so I'm actually just going to simplify this and show you this other function down the end, which is to remove, and it just makes them go away. So if I want to reconnect, I can just draw a new line. It's just going to be a nice clean one between them. I'm going to do what we did, which is put two ends on it. I'm going to say that they are married to each other. Now I might want it so that I have certain colors for certain things, so I might make all of these ones, so I can actually click on a color here and say, right, all the actually let's go a nice bright color, all the family are going to be this color, and I can actually change that the color of those lines. I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit, and I'm going to collect some more of the family. So we've got Angelica, we've got Peggy, and we've got their father, Philip Schuyler, and somewhere kicking around, there we go, we've got Philip Hamilton, who is the son of Alexander Hamilton and Eliza. So I could do connections here where it's like Angelica and Peggy sisters. I could just have it so it goes between those two, or I could draw all of them in a line. I can, as I said before, I can title that, so sister. Let's do the same on this one. Sister. So that's kind of showing it a little bit like kind of mind map mode, or if I want to get rid of this one, let's go delete and let me connect these two together. It might make more sense that we just have two-ended arrows on all of these. That's showing that they are all sisters, and let's give the same name to that thing in the middle. So we have the girls. Now you'll notice I've kind of got lines going uphill and downhill. If I select all of these, one of the useful functions on the whiteboard is that it tries to create a section or uses some tools that allow me to tidy up or clean up. So I can do things like go down to tidy up, and I can align the tops, the centers, or the bottoms. So let's just go tops, and you might have seen that they all kind of pulled into a nice line. Or I can also do the same with selecting some of those and distribute. There's a distribute button there to make them the same distance apart. So I could do the same here with this is Philip Schuyler, who is the father of 1, 2, and 3. For those who are triggered by that not being straight, let's do that. And then we've got Philip Hamilton, who is the son. So son of those two. And then what I might want to do is to add some of these other characters. So I'm just going to zoom back out a little bit again here. So let's get some of his friends. So we've got Lawrence, we've got Hercules Mulligan and Lafayette. And then we've got Aaron Burr, who is the rival. So I'm just going to make a connection to Aaron Burr. This is probably a good candidate for one of these little fellas, and I'm going to change the color of that to something else because he's a rival, and let's put that in. So political rival. If I zoom in, you can see that's what I did. As you'll notice, the size of the text between these stays small, so as I zoom out, it can get harder to read, as opposed to sections, as we've talked about in the crash course. Those titles stay a bit bigger. So if I was wanting to keep a group of people together, like these 3 cards who are his friend, I can also just use the other functions like close friends, or I could have close allies, whichever works for you. And now that that section, as I zoom out, you'll see that that's just remains a little bit more readable. So that you can kind of start to stack these tools together. If I zoom back in, another tool that I've got the ability to use, if I just right click on here, I can also just add text anywhere on this whiteboard. So I could have English monarchy, monarchy, and I've got the ability to, with a text like that, I can still use the other tools like headings and just text colors to make things pop. So I can have that travel with King George, or I could have made that a section, but it's like the text element is kind of a useful thing to have kicking around anyway. So as you can see, I can probably make some other connections. Something I didn't show you is that if I wanted to connect between Alexander Hamilton and, for example, these guys, let's go clonk. I'm going to take that back to being a straight line, and I'm just going to move this a little bit further away. If I choose this, I might just change the color to show a relationship here. One of the other options we didn't look at was in this little square here down by the remove button. We've got the line type, so I can actually make that a thicker line. I can make that a dotted line, so I can go a thick dotted line or a super thick line. If I want to turn that off, you'll notice that I thought if I click this first one, it goes back to being thin and the dots will go away, but it actually, you may be able to see that the dashed line is still blue, so it's still actually showing. So I've got to turn that off so I can have a thin, medium or thick line, and it can be either dashed or not dashed. And again, I can choose whether or not there are any arrows just by choosing which arrowhead I have. So at the moment, that line has none between them, because I might just want to have a relationship that I'm showing, or I can get into actually naming and having the lines between these. So hopefully you can see the basic tools here and how they're quite useful. Something you may not realize is that you can have things in multiple sections. So for example, if I made a box here over all of the Skylar family, I could make a section which is, let's call them as they are, Skylars. But I could also have a section which is which doesn't compete with that, which could be Hamilton's. And you'll see that Hamilton's, I got options for doing things like coloring those as well. At the moment, the color palette is limited, but I hope in time that that's something that Heptabase will give us more options for. But you can see that, like, it's really quickly I can actually have these sections that allow me to they can overlap. I can also do things like join between a section and a card. So I could have something like George Washington could just join to, you can see they're attaching itself to the Hamilton's family, although he's not a member of that. But it's like that idea that I can just I can either connect to from card to card to section, or if I have another whiteboard on here, I can even connect to that too, which is quite useful. So I hope this little look at how the connections tool works for you is useful for you, and you can see how you could make a full character map of something like this for revising some content. You could have arrows going between all sorts of things telling you about relationships, and multiple arrows, different colors, different line types, and it's definitely, for me, way more powerful than the mind map tool. So I hope this has been great, and I'll keep making this content if you guys want more of this.